Welcome to the Scale Up Valley podcast, where we bring the best founders and investors to help you scale a business from 1 million to 1 trillion. Today's guest is Sebastian, the founder and MD at Buynomics. Sebastian, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
It's my pleasure, and that's not all the time that we discuss a very important topic here on the show, which is pricing. We all know that pricing is so important, but very few of us pay enough attention to pricing. But without disclosing any more than that, I would love for you to give us an intro about your background, your story, before you decided to start Buynomics.
Yeah, happy to do so. So we started Buynomics almost 5 years ago. My co-founder Ingo and myself, we know each other from a German consultancy called Simon Kutscher, which you might or might not know, is the second largest German consultancy focused on pretty much everything on the revenue side of things. So this includes pricing, but also like product price, architecture, all questions about revenue management, promotions, etc., etc. And yeah, I spent there quite some time. I spent there 6 years. Ingo even spent there 9 years as director. So Ingo is a senior director. And I think like during that time, we more or less saw all the topics there are in the field, and also saw quite a lot of industries.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and we started Buynomics because we were basically unhappy what we think is the key question behind pricing, but not only pricing, basically all revenue management questions is answered. And this question is, what will the customer buy? Because if you like go one step back and think, there's a relatively limited amount of questions in revenue management, and basically all companies, if you're like BMW or Coca-Cola,
mm-hmm.
or running a lemonade stand, you basically always have the same questions. And those questions are, which product should I offer? What should they cost?
Right.
How should I promote them? And how should I change those basically 3 things given changing market conditions? This means changing cost, changing competitive environment, changing customer behavior. And those are very simple questions, basically, and they are like notoriously hard to answer throughout. And now the question is, why? Why are they so hard to answer?
Right.
And the reason is because you don't know how your customers would react, right? So if you have like a lemonade stand or your Coca-Cola, doesn't matter, and you have 3 products, and you ask yourself, should I introduce a 4th product like on top?
Right.
Or should I change the middle price of my product? Or should I run like a 20% promotion or 25% promotion or no promotions at all? Mm-hmm. So the problem always is you don't know how your customers would react. How would they change their buying behavior? And if you would know, the answer would be very simple. So basically, excuse me, it's just, as Ingo always says, it's kind of the opposite of chess, what we are doing, right? So in chess, the rules are very simple. Everyone understands the rules, but it's very hard to play a good game, right? So even though you know the rules, it's very hard to make the right moves. In our case, it's more or less the opposite. So the rules are very, very hard, and the rules are understanding how customers would react. But if you know the rules, how customers react, is easy to play a good game. So, and this was our starting point, plus looking at a status quo, what is the best proxy of customer behavior? So how do you make this estimation? And that was clear that this is not ideal, and we came up with a better idea how to do it. Mm-hmm. And yeah, this idea is basically what we call virtual customers. Of course, it's a marketing term. In the end, it's a statistical model of customer behavior. And we thought it through, and basically became clear that this is so strong that we have to, this has to be a software company. So you need like large scale simulation methods to do that. And it has to be run in the cloud. And it's so strong, the idea, and that by then basically it was a guess, like a strong guess, that we just took the leap of faith and founded Buynomics.
And you guys are, I should have said that in the beginning, but I'm still on time to say that you are based in Cologne, Germany. And I think it's also interesting to mention that the consulting company that you have been representing before, funding Buynomics, it has behind that consulting company, considered the one Herman Simon who invented the hidden champions category and kind of considered also the pricing guru, which have been also, I believe, a good inspiration for you guys to start the company, right?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. So Herman Simon is definitely, I think, one of the biggest, or if not the biggest, like management thinker in Germany. And he basically brought this topic pricing on the table and revenue management. And yeah, so this is, I mean, meanwhile, it's more or less commonplace, more or less everyone knows that this is important, at least for our target customers, which are typically large enterprises. So it's totally clear that the levers or the decisions you make there have like huge impact, top and bottom line. And that I don't know, doing a simple cost plus or whatever rule is basically not sufficient. And I think that makes our life, of course, much easier than if you have to go the first step and really has to explain why it's important to make their better decisions.
Right. And you started Buynomics in July of 2018, according to your LinkedIn, and you have raised the pre-seed round, the seed round, and the A round last November. What else can you share for the ones who are listening to us relate to the stage of growth you are in? Any headcount numbers that you can share, number of clients, whatever are the numbers that you can disclose, of course.
Yeah. So headcount, we are now more or less 60 people. Half of them in Cologne, I would say roughly, perhaps a bit more. Then almost a quarter in Barcelona, where we have a second office. The Spanish market is great, really has great talent. And the rest really distributed across basically all parts of Europe. And yeah, mainly Europe. We try to really be set up in a way so that's easy, or that they can work fully productive and with no disadvantages remotely.
Got it.
Yeah, because I mean it's clear that we won great talent in Cologne, but you cannot really win all the best talent only in Cologne. That's clear. We are customer-wise, we are so we have some dozens of customers, and across different stages, and we have mainly large enterprise customers. So I think that's important to understand, to understand our business. So we are very often, you see this top-down motion, like top-down motion, starting with SME and trying to win mid-market and enterprise clients. For us, it's quite the opposite, or we are not really, not really meant to SMEs, and we still have to evaluate if and when we will do this. But for us, it was like enterprise customers was the first target.
Right. Sounds amazing. And in terms of so your motion is an enterprise go to market, and I would assume that you get in Germany, and are you kind of land and expanding across Europe those large enterprise accounts, or how does it work in practice, the way you grow the business currently?
Yeah, it's definitely land and expand. I think the land definitely is like focused on European countries, but I wouldn't necessarily say only Germany.
Got it.
I don't know. I actually don't know the breakdown exactly, but I think we have like at least a third or so of the revenue from the US or the Americas.
Okay.
Or at least outside Europe. We also have customers in Australia and New Zealand. And I mean, the beauty about those revenue management topics is that basically country is, I would say, no category. So if I go from supermarket A to supermarket B in Germany, or I go from supermarket A in Germany to supermarket B in the US, makes no difference, right? So they have exactly the same topics. They have very, very comparable data.
And the technology and the methodology can support to solve the same problem.
Exactly. So I mean, we are targeting somewhat like mature markets. So not really developing countries, because data quality definitely is an aspect. But where this country is, if it's in like Americas, Europe, Asia, elsewhere, basically doesn't matter.
Any focus in terms of verticals? We always say that in enterprise, we need to be very careful to not try to go everywhere. And sometimes just a vertical might be enough to get to 10 million ARR. But typically there is this temptation of having at least 3 verticals to not be too dependent in just one vertical, or at least having one vertical that is really scaling up, another 2 that are in tests and having initial traction, and we are exploring what it will be the second one to scale up, right?
I mean, it's kind of a perfect summary of what we are doing, but we kind of like went there in like non-linear ways, I would say. So in the beginning, we were like, I would say, over optimistic, right? So we had a time where we had more verticals than people in the company. And that was, of course, like an overstretch. We had like pilot customers in insurance, in consumer goods, even in B2B, in telco, in software. And I mean, the good thing is we saw that basically the value proposition and also the method works everywhere. That was great. And some things, so for example, insurance, very attractive market. I think no solution in the space. But notoriously long sales cycle. So really, even for enterprise, so a year is really fast, I guess. And but now, I mean, at the moment we are really at those 3 verticals: telco, software, consumer goods. Consumer goods definitely is the biggest one, but also the other ones work very well. I think, but very much by nature, because like people spend significantly more money for consumer goods than they spend for telco or for software.
Right.
And therefore it makes sense. And now, I think at the moment, I think consumer goods is really big enough for 10 million is, I would say, almost an order of magnitude too small, what you could make there. Perhaps even more than one order of magnitude. But yeah, we try to really go into adjacent verticals in the first place. So, for example, OTC pharma is an example, very, very similar to consumer goods. And yeah, that's our motion at the moment.
Got it. And there is something that you guys are doing very well, and that I see as a pattern for any successful company, which is making inbound work, but it's also counterintuitive, because we would say that in enterprise motion, it's a lot about also combining inbound with outbound, and maybe that's what you are doing. But I know that you have been investing a lot in content, so we were just commenting that we released so far 270 plus episodes since 2018. and you guys have already got to 100 plus webinars for your customers. And that's also the way you position yourself. You create thought leadership, you create interest. You also, of course, give first to your customers and become also credible in the knowledge that you put out there. How is that motion work to serve enterprises that we know it's a lot of startups also go moving upstream instead of starting with enterprise because of what you just said, sales cycle, credibility, reputation, whatever it is. And you need to have those first customers fast and start proving problem solution fit and product market fit. So sometimes enterprise might be a little bit more difficult. The good news is if you are able to land a number of enterprise accounts, then having a net revenue retention of quality might be a little bit easier. Having more repetitive recurring revenue might be also a little bit easier. So in terms of scaling up in the midterm, it might be a little bit easier than SMBs, where you need to have so many leads, a machine of leads to be able to scale that motion. But anyway.
Actually, I mean, meanwhile, at least at the Series A funding, we also thought like more strategically about it. In the beginning, we did a lot of stuff. To be honest, pretty intuitive, or just
it should be search mode, right?
And I mean, so for us, it was always like, I mean, you have to peel away risks, right? Startups is about peeling away risks, and one risk was, I mean, the first risk obviously was, does it work? So does our method work? So we come very much from our method. So we are pretty convinced that if our method does what we claim, so basically that we can predict customer buying behavior, then we are in a very, very good spot. Other things also have to be executed, no question about that. But basically, when we think about the company, we only always think about the product, kind of. The rest is also is like needs to be aligned, but we think really about the product. And the first thing was really we need to prove that it works, right? And for that, we thought, okay, we need like a company with good data to get that data and test if customers really behave how we predict. And for us, it was clear, like it's much better if you have a larger company, because statistics is much better than for smaller companies, because they have more customers.
Got it.
This is number one. Number two, the other risk is really obviously for every startup, do people want to buy it and pay significant? And for us, it was always like, I mean, even on a almost a conceptual phase, basically when we presented the solution or the idea to clients, even big clients in the very early days, with like little more than a concept, we saw that the value proposition is very compelling. So we very rarely to never have a reaction like, I don't want it, I don't need it, I already have it. So that never happens.
Right.
It's always that looks fantastic, but does it work, right? And then like in the next step, it says, can it do that? Do you have that feature, etc., etc.? That's the phase we are currently in. In the beginning, it was like, does it work? In the beginning, the answer always was, okay, we can A/B test it and prove that it does work. But from a scalability standpoint, which we basically haven't considered then, it prolongs the sales cycle. It makes it's costly to do those tests, etc., etc. And we very soon figured out it's much easier to be able to say, look, a Denon, a Ferrero, I can list many more clients. We are not allowed to name, but trust us. So you can trust us. So this is much better. So therefore, for us, it was very important having those enterprise clients, having them as a reference, proving that the method works. And I think the last point was very important, co-developing basically the product with them. So we were very certain about a method, but if you build a new product, really a new product category, you cannot go like, if I would sell like socks on the internet, I could just go to another page sells socks and more or less copy what they do and make the button green or something like that. And for us, it's very much every screen has to be designed from scratch because there is no such screen. And we have looked at nothing but sat there in the beginning with PowerPoints and just thought, okay, it should look like that. And for that, it's extremely helpful if you're talking to experts, and large enterprises have experts. So, and it was just this thought, okay, if we can make it there, we basically can make it everywhere, right? So, and we need to co-develop it with large enterprises. And when you're going to smaller clients, you also have like, they are in a way, they have less patience, right? So because they are less of experts, they only want to use it less frequently and they expect stuff to be much more automated. And in the beginning, almost by definition, you don't have automation, right? So you need, it's much better that way around.
Got it. It makes a lot of sense. But in the end, in terms of your motion, is it kind of a combination? Does inbound helps to create kind of brand awareness, thought leadership, or do you kind of combine outbound by inviting some of those experts and decision makers to join your webinars, so then they get in touch with you and it might start the conversation and go through to explain a little bit more about what you guys do? So do you combine both motions, the outbound and the inbound motion? How does that work?
From our experience, this very clean motion. So what in my understanding, and I'm not an expert basically, but in my understanding, how I understand inbound is basically I or Ingo post, there's a webinar on LinkedIn, totally organically, people register, they participate, and afterwards they contact us and say, look, this is so great of content, or perhaps they saw some nurturing emails. Can we talk?
Yeah.
This is basically, this also happens, but it's not like super rare, but it's not a majority. The majority is, I would say 50-50 inbound, outbound, organic and kind of paid, that people come to the webinars, or see our content. And then also very often we contact them afterwards, and then the conversation starts. So it's not a super clean motion, but it's much easier that way than if you just cold emailing.
And let's have a conversation without, or we have something interesting about revenue optimization, and Buynomics is an amazing solution. Might not be the easiest way to open the door. It's much easier to invite someone to talk about a topic that might be a pain for that decision maker first, right?
Yeah, and also position yourself, right? Because it's like it's very hard. I mean, for us, it's like we are, as I said, I guess many companies are, but I mean, we are very convinced of the solution. So we are very convinced that the right way to do it is how we do it. And also, quite honestly, we also think we do it better than anyone else. So ours have like more screens and integrations, but it's still much better. So, so for us, it's more, we just need some space to convince, right? So for us, we are very much convinced if you just like make very clear what we do and show what we can bring, and then it's the conversation is much easier. So we know we are perceived as thought leaders because we do, our webinars are never a very little salesy. So typically it's almost more like, Ingo does it more like a university course, right? So he has an interesting topic and he talks about it, and in the end we show, look, this is how it would look in Buynomics, and then we show the solution, but only if it adds value to the topic. So we really want to educate, and this is basically true for all our content. So our rule is basically we push no content which is not like original thoughts, or at least something interesting. We are going very well with that, and we are perceived as thought leaders, and we also see that also on our webinars, typically very few people churn during the webinar. So we have like 95% the people who start a webinar also end it. So
I like you use the terminology churn for the ones who don't stay till then. I like it. Well done.
And yeah, and so. And yeah, that's basically it's our complete approach to go to market. Also, we almost want to have like we both have a very like strong scientific background, and we almost try to have like a scientific approach to go to market. So for us, it's just if we are stating the facts, people should know, and typically they want it, and if not, okay. So I don't want to like talk or growth hack someone into a sale. Also, that doesn't match with the expand motion in the end. So
absolutely.
For us, it's just we are stating facts, and in our opinion, and we are 100% convinced, the facts are customer behavior is key to our revenue management questions. Virtual customers are the gold standard for our customer behavior. We have virtual customers. That's it. So, and now you can take it or not. And we just try to bring this over in all kinds of interesting ways. But that's our approach. Yeah.
Right. Just a curiosity on the motion, because some of the founders and revenue leaders that might be listening are curious about it. You also mentioned there is also a component of performance marketing to be able to, to have the webinars full. Then of course the referrals start to happen. So it's a combination, I assume, of some invites that you might do, but also kind of trying to automate the funnel in the way that you have performance marketing helping to feed the registrations on the webinars. And then, as you said, you might follow up after the webinar to see if there is interest for a conversation, or even better, when someone who has been on the webinar say, I'd love to chat with you guys because I think you guys can help us. That's how we're happening. Right?
Yeah, I think that's pretty much what we do.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, I think we definitely could improve that in many ways.
In any company, right?
Yeah, but again, so for us, it's very important to be not too salesy. So that's
I got it. And again, especially European markets and German markets, it is very different from the American markets. However, 1/3 of your revenue already comes from the US. It might be interesting also to see how different tactics might not work in Europe, but in the US, maybe being a little bit more aggressive might work a little bit better, depending, of course, on the states, on East Coast, West Coast, etc. There are also different subcultures and different cultures across different verticals as well. Right?
Yeah. I mean, one very interesting thing that we see in consumer goods, particularly, is that in consumer goods, I have the impression people change jobs much more often than in our vertical. So as a consultant, I work very much in automotive, and you kind of, it feels like you buy a house as soon as you have a new job, and you will never, see in your life. In consumer goods, it's quite different. So I feel like in every 3-4 years, it's like the half-life of like the consumer goods station. And this helps us quite a lot, because we saw many times that people bring us more or less directly into their new company, and there's much more conversation going on, and therefore, if you manage to really build a reputation, this is an extremely helpful and powerful channel, so to say, which builds up over time.
Yeah. Something interesting. You are two founders, right? So you are talking always about your co-founder Ingo, who is also delivering the webinars. Both founders are from a consulting background and a business background. Do you have any technical co-founder in the mix, or?
Actually not, no. And I mean, it's really not like it's not like founding a startup one-on-one, where it's like this business guy and then you have like technical guy and person like an operations guy. I don't know. Yeah. No, we are in like from the background, we're very similar, right? So we have both like strong academic, quantitative background. We also spend time in the same consultancy. We are quite different as people, I would say. That's good. But I think a key problem in this classical setup is, I think it's very difficult to evaluate how good the other one is. So if you have that kind of a founding team, I think it's very difficult to evaluate for a CTO how good the say business CEO is, and vice versa. So
right.
Yeah.
But your strategy there was to hire the CTO as an early employee. How were you able to complement yourself in a way? Because of course investors would also want to know who would be taking care of the technical or the product and technology side of the business, right?
Yeah. But actually, we haven't yet hired a CTO, and also not some senior people, but relatively late, but not too senior. I mean, in the beginning, the key component of the code has been written by us in Python, right? So this
cool.
I mean, but
so you have been more kind of the CPO, and in a certain way, you were able to.
But also there, like, parts have been written by you, parts have been written by me. So it's kind of it's not typical, but the good thing is, so I know the product, and also with product, I mean, like, at least the core logic more or less inside out. So I know what we can do, what we cannot do, in which direction we are going, etc., etc. And I wouldn't, I mean, okay, if you like have a CTO founder, you have the same thing in the team. But at the same time, I mean, it's very important, more or less, if you're building a complex new product, it's very important that you have a lot of knowledge in one head. So, and a lot of knowledge means feedback during sales, feedback from customers, feedback from investors, plus the technical thing. So because there's for complex projects like that, I feel there's a lot of lost in translation if it's going back and forth. So it doesn't seem like intuitively right, but I don't think really it's the worst thing. But definitely, I mean, now that you say that, it becomes even more clear. I mean, raising the pre-seed round was really extremely hard, because we basically checked no boxes, and those are the boxes you are mentioning. Yeah.
Right. No, and it makes sense. I'm asking because, of course, we are seeing different ways of getting to the same destination work, and I'm seeing different founding teams always becoming the exception and working. So I'm always curious to get to know how you guys are doing it, and I can see that it happens the classic that sometimes you don't have the product leader, but the founders, MDs in this case, or co-CEOs are have the product mind, so they are able to have a product vision and to lead the technical team. And it seems also that you guys have surrounded yourself well, and that you also have certain understanding of the technical side, so that you were able to lead a tech team until now. And maybe later, when you start completing your leadership team, you will have those seats hired as well. But until now, it worked for you to work in this way, and that's fine.
Yeah. I mean, we have some senior people in tech, so I'm absolutely not able to do any code reviews of the team anymore for a very long time now. But yeah, it worked out. I mean, in general, I feel like startup science is kind of after the fact science, like almost like sports science. You not come up with a theory and see, okay, reality matches your theory. You look at reality, what is dominant, and then you adapt your theories. That's not the ideal way. So therefore, but yeah, it works out for us.
A great compliment and the sign that you guys are going in the right direction is a recent 13 million A round led by Inside Partners, so which is a tier one investor, which shows that again, that's why I'm deep diving, not trying to catch anything that might be wrong, but because there are different ways of getting to the same place, and we all need to learn, and that's the purpose of the podcast. So how has been some of your fundraising lessons, and if you want to share a little bit the story, feel free to.
Yeah. So I mean, we announced the round in November. We closed it in end of August, but basically very similar market environment, I would say.
Right. Which is great. 13 million rounds in this downturn. That's an amazing, let's say, credibility check, or investors believe in what you are doing, right? And in the team, in the product, in the opportunity.
Yeah. So I mean, for us, it became like over time, it became kind of easier. I already said like pre-seed round was unbelievably hard. For us, it's getting easier the more tangible metrics there are, because I think the tangible metrics play in our favor, kind of like the kind of customers we have.
That's the best way.
Yeah.
Especially now, having the metrics, you have the round. If it is just a vision, it might be more complex now.
Yeah. That's one thing. But I mean, that's also my first A round. So I cannot compare A round against A round, but
right.
Comparing it to the seed round, I mean, it might be natural, but it was quite a lot of diligence also early on, right? So it was not.
It was of kind of 12 months before. So you in August 21 for the ones who are listening, to give them context, right? So
yeah,
you raised the 2.6.
was like 18 months or so before, more or less. Then we raised it.
Yeah.
Also less diligence to be done, but at the same time, in general, like we talked to a lot of funds, had a lot of good conversations, and super happy to work with Insight, because really there are not so many funds that have experience with really large cap enterprises, but in general, much more diligence, which in some way again is good if you have like good metrics. But it's I think it's definitely a rough environment. I would absolutely say that. I mean, what's good was for us that the metrics is good, that our market is not affected by the downturn, and at least not negatively. Also no massive tailwind, but perhaps somewhat, because like changing market conditions means you need to measure the market better, and we measure the market. So this is, and there's also a lot of opportunity. And our industries are not massively affected. People still continue to buy food and beverages, telco, and they don't.
Sure, in travel it would be more difficult at the time.
Exactly.
But now it's getting back.
Yeah. So that's the other thing that really helped us. But yeah, I think just to summarize it, I think from the outside in, it was a relatively straight process. It took us, I don't know, 2.5 months or so.
Very good.
I think it's decent, but it's
very good.
Yeah,
especially on those conditions. 2.5 months, it's quite good. And compared to the pre-seeds, it seems that the pre-seed, and usually it depends on the market environment, on the opportunity. But was it kind of 6 months or?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure. I mean,
a long time ago.
Some things are like homemade.
2019.
Make it so good. I mean, the thing is, we're not coming from a startup environment at all. So I have zero friends in VC, right? So and I
needed
know
to learn
how
it all.
many startup founders have friends in VC, and at least talk the same language, can talk,
right.
So that was not the case. The other thing which I totally underestimated was this thing that we want to define a category, right? So this is something still, but especially in pre-seed, this was a big minus, I would say. So I know, like we've been sitting in a room with investors, really like 10 people from their side, or 15, including partners, and like pitching the idea, showing the product, and then the question came, okay, but is this really completely new? Is no one in the US already doing it? And we were like, no one is doing it. We developed it from scratch. And then the meeting was over, right? So yeah, because but if you think about it, and I haven't thought about in that way back then, but you add another layer of risk to their worldview. So, and that's also something that I learned during Series A. It's like you can split investors in the ones who are happy to do thinking from first principles, right? So you say find a new market, then they try to understand this new market and evaluate, and the ones who are not willing, right? So they evaluate that market and they try to find companies in that market. That's my understanding. Or they try to press you in a market which is just not true, right? So it's like it's like they press us in the pricing market. And yes, we do pricing. Also, a car manufacturer also produces entertainment, because like there's an entertainment system inside, but it's not a product, right? It's a tiny part of the product. And for us, we just saw that, and a lot of US investors are much more. I think there's quite a difference. Also some European, not all, but quite a difference, that there are more US investors who are willing to think the market from first principles, and they will then they are, if they like the market and they like you, then they invest. But in the pre-seed round, it was much more, okay, it's just an additional layer of risk.
Right. Is there a category there? Is there any winner in that category? Yes or no? Are we following? Is there space for 2 or 3 winners or a winner in a different region? Right. So those are kind of the questions, and the US investors are more open to risk. And if they see that you can be a leader in a new category, they would be interested to be part of that journey. Right.
Yeah. I mean, it's more risk, more reward. Right? So you have to be willing to take more risk.
Right. That's a good point to make. Awesome. And of course, we have experts here in how would you define the category? Because I know that I've been making the mistake of talking too much about pricing, and I see it's much more kind of a revenue management product. How would you call the category today that you guys are building?
Overall, we want to build an operating system for commercial decisions. I know operating system is kind of a buzzword, but I think it's pretty accurate, because if what I said in the beginning, all commercial decisions eventually break down to the question, what will customers buy? Even supply, right? So even if you ask yourself, how much do I need to produce today to have enough in stock in 6 weeks' time for a promotion, you need to estimate how much it will sell in that promotion.
Right.
And all commercial decisions eventually come down to the question, what will customers buy? And really, there is no other technology out there which can answer this question from one single source of truth. It's the same source of truth you ask for changing prices, changing promotions, changing basically everything, right? And therefore, it makes total sense to build a platform, an operating system where different departments can work together from one single source of truth and optimize holistically, because you leave a lot of money on the table if you optimize in sequence or in isolation and not holistically from one single source of truth. And that's basically the phase we are currently in, building a foundation or a first step towards that platform in revenue management. But over time, we really want to expand in an operating system.
And I assume one of the main challenges that you have there, that it's a great topic to talk when we are approaching enterprise, is really how are you able to stay loyal to your product vision and not kind of develop an ad hoc product for any single enterprise customer that you are serving. It should be a huge temptation, especially in the first enterprise accounts that you recruited or that you acquired as customers, to be able to resist the temptation to not develop a tailor-made product and become almost a software consulting company for them, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because like the good thing is it's a very good question. Also the top VCs ask us that question, but this is one of the things I would say we surprisingly little to not had at all. So we are, as of today, we basically have exactly the same product for all our clients across different industries. And the change in the product is done by customer success. So for example, customer success sets a checkbox. This customer has retailers. So big telco clients, they sell directly to the customers. FMCG producers, they sell through retailers. So you have an additional level of retailers or wholesalers and retailers, or has customer lifetime value. For telco, customer lifetime value is super important to maximize. For consumer goods, customer lifetime value doesn't exist because you don't know the customers you sell through retailers. But those are, and on that level, I think it's absolutely no problem. If you branch out very far and to add another screen or add another chart on the very far end of the product for different industries, doesn't matter, right? It costs you half a screen. Yeah. So what is the problem if you have to change the core, right? And then you deviate. But we don't do that at all. And I think the core, the reason for that is it's because the same people, right? So we are modeling buying decisions of people, and the same people that buy insurances also buy soft drinks or mobile plans, right? So of course, parameterization for insurances is different than for soft drink and mobile plans, but it's the same people. Therefore, the same dynamics applies, and we don't have to split it up. Yeah.
Love it. Good point. And before we go to the last segment of the show, do you think that some of the SaaS CEOs and revenue leaders that are listening might benefit from some of your content, or do you think it's much more for the very large companies that you are targeting today?
No, I think basically everyone. I mean, from the contents, definitely. So we really have great content, and if nothing else, it's at least a lot of food for thought, and it's really a really good thought. So for example, we have a webinar about price discrimination, so customer-based pricing. So it's a big temptation, and you more or less can show mathematically how good you need to know your customer. So it's better to predict like an individual price and give everyone the same price, and you need to have a correlation, I think, of above 95. Like your prediction of order of willingness to pay and real willingness to pay to make that work, and then it drops very sharp. So if you're below, and it's very, very difficult. So even if you think about, I mean, you can really think very simple. Even if you have a store for shoes or clothes, and you know all your customers very well, to estimate what each individual customer is willing to pay based on what you know from him, it's very difficult. And this is this is one of the things we try to challenge status quo, because there's a lot of anecdotal evidence in the field, like this decoy effect, good, better, best, and so on. And also like customer individual prices. Yes, of course, it's a great idea if you would know the exact willingness to pay, but typically you don't know. And then there's very little, and this is a general rule, quantitative backing of those qualitative statements. So how well do you need to know your customer to really make it work? Because in the end, it's always a quantitative statement, right? So it's always everyone likes this. Okay, I put a more expensive wine on the on the menu, and then everyone buys the middle product. Great, but how expensive should it exactly be compared to those other
Right.
In the end, it's a very quantitative question, and this is extremely hard to answer. And I think we have a lot of good food for thought on those topics.
So just go to Buynomics.com and you'll be able to see some of the webinars.
We have great white papers and blog articles, and also I think all our webinars are online. Yeah.
Awesome. So let's go to the last segment of the show, Sebastian, where I ask you a quick question and we kind of do a ping pong of question and answer. If you would have the opportunity to have a coffee with yourself at the beginning of Buynomics in 2018, what advice would you offer to your younger self?
Might sound very generic. Basics. So it's all about getting the basics right? So really there are 2-3 most important things. Spend all your time doing that, spend 0 time doing anything else. And perhaps, I mean, one thing that that I learned in sports is like, tell me your personal best and I tell you if I want to hear your opinion. And this is also very true for advisors, right? So there's a lot of people who want to tell you something. Just make sure you listen to people who really done it successfully themselves.
Awesome. What are you the most proud of on your journey so far?
That we made it work in the first place. So it's really, I mean, it's really a very special feeling when like real results coming in and you can compare them to what you have predicted the first time, and then see like people really behave that way. So it's unbelievable, right? So you're getting the results.
It works.
you type like crazy in Excel for 10 minutes to get first analysis, and then crazy, it works. Yeah, this is the most crazy thing. And the other thing, also like be cheesy, but really winning the team, or being able to get a team. We have really unbelievable strong team.
Worst advice ever received?
Perhaps similar to that is someone already doing in the US. So if you are building something new, don't look after competition, because that's just distraction. So in the beginning, you just have to follow your intuition, and then pray that it works. It's that might work. The other one is definitely, I would say, the road to death.
Right. Create your hypothesis and validate those hypotheses instead of trying to do a copycat, right? In a certain way. Yeah. Resources. Favorite book, business or non-business? You decide.
Business is memos from the chairman, from Ace Greenberg, former CEO from Bear Stearns, I guess, so investment bank. And it's a very short book. Like every page is a memo he sent internally to his staff, and it's unbelievable good stories. So one, it's very, very well thought through, and two, it's crazy. Like he invents like an Inuit which tries to teach his people to not buy rubber bands because they get so many in-house. So it's unbelievable that the CEO of such a big company sends such great memos, but I really love it. Yeah.
Favorite movie or series?
I would say Bad Santa or Lawrence of Arabia. So I think that one of those.
Curious, great additions to the list. And finally, your favorite podcast, excluding this one.
I would say Lex Fridman. Yeah.
What is that one, Sebastian? Could you repeat?
Lex Fridman.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
So I mean, I really like listening to people who are like I don't know, 30, 40, 50 IQ points, above you, and how they see the world. Really, really impressive.
Great additions to the list. Sebastian, it has been a pleasure to have you on the show. Good luck with the next chapters, and you are always invited to come back to share the progress. Thanks so much.
Thanks for the invite. Really enjoyed the conversation. Bye-bye.
And to our community, thanks for being there. We keep bringing you the best founders and investors to help you scale a business from 1 million to 1 trillion. See you soon and keep scaling.